Wow, reform's opponents are really getting desperate because now we have had a Lib Dem MP ask Yvette Cooper to investigate Zia Yusuf for, get this, potential terrorism offences. You can't make this up. We're going to have a look at the letter that this guy has written to Yvette Cooper, as well as the huge spat that is ongoing on Twitter between the two of them. But first of all, make sure you hit the subscribe button down below for more news updates. So Zia Yusuf has tweeted, "A member of the UK government's Defence Select Committee has called for me to be locked up under terrorism charges for proposing an alternative policy position." This comes after that big reform press conference on Tuesday calling for mass deportations, and talks have been happening between reform and the Taliban about returning people to Afghanistan. Zia goes on to say, "Jailing political opponents is Putin tactics. They will stop at nothing to stop reform. We will not be deterred." So let's take a look at this letter in question, written by the Lib Dem MP Mike Martin. Let's take a closer look up at that for those of us who cannot see clearly. So it says, "Dear Secretary of State," that's to Yvette Cooper, "I am writing to raise serious concerns regarding a public statement made by the head of Reform UK's Department of Government Efficiency, Zia Yusuf, on Tuesday. Speaking to the Today programme, he said it would be reasonable to use part of a £2 billion fund to make payments to the Taliban government in Afghanistan in exchange for accepting the return of individuals who have entered the UK illegally. As you'll be aware, the Taliban leadership includes individuals who are members of proscribed terrorist organisations." And it goes on to quote the Terrorism Act: "A person commits an offence if he invites support for a proscribed organisation and the support is not or is not restricted to the provision of money or other property." The public suggestion of a policy to make payments to the Taliban government, which would undoubtedly result in funds reaching individuals and organisations proscribed as terrorists by the United Kingdom, may constitute an offence under Section 12(1) of the Terrorism Act 2000. Therefore, I request that you investigate whether these statements violate the Terrorism Act, and if deemed appropriate, refer the matter to the relevant authorities to further investigation and action. Thank you for your attention to this matter, and I look forward to your response. So that is from Mike Martin, the Lib Dem MP. And that tweet that I showed you from Zia, saying a member of the UK's Defence Select Committee has called for me to be locked up under terrorism charges. Well, Mike Martin was not happy about that. This spat has taken a turn for the worse, and he says, "Hi Zia, this is a false statement about me and potentially libelous. I suggest you take it down and make a £100 donation to a charity of my choice, or I guess I'll be finding some lawyers." So now, not only is this guy writing to the Home Secretary asking for Zia to be investigated, he's now threatening legal action for libel over a tweet. This is getting very out of hand, isn't it, ladies and gentlemen? And also, in response to Zia Yusuf's tweet, he, to try and clear up the air and sound like he's not that extreme, has said, "Nope, I asked the Home Secretary to look into whether you had broken the law when you suggested sending money to a terrorist group, the Taliban. I also noticed that even though Good Morning Britain repeatedly asked you or anyone from Reform to come on and debate this with me, you chickened out. I don't know if that is true about GMB, but that is interesting." I mean, let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Of course, Zia has added a little bit of flair, perhaps you could say, in his tweet. I mean, I think he's quite rightly angry about this. But let me ask you this. Would Mike Martin have written that letter to Yvette Cooper if he did not believe that Zia Yusuf has committed, acts that go against the terrorism legislation? Okay, I mean, it seems quite clear to me from that letter exactly what Mike Martin thinks. He is, of course, he has to write it in a way that assumes innocence before proven guilty. He cannot say as an MP rather than a judge, Zia Yusuf has committed an act of terrorism. All he can say is, can you investigate whether or not this is an act of terrorism? So, interesting stuff. And as I say, this to me really does seem like the opposition is getting desperate. And this comes as today we have found out that Reform have led in the polls by a whopping 16% for the first time in a poll, I believe, and they are on 34%, which is absolutely huge, by the way. That is the percentage that Labour won the general election on, by the way. And what's shocking is that is more than the Labour Party and the Tories combined. So Labour are on 18% and the Conservatives are on 15%. Do the maths, that makes 33, and Reform are on 34. So it is really getting desperate. You've got the Lib Dems writing letters asking for Zia to be investigated for potential terrorism charges, and you have got in number 10, they have put together a special task force completely dedicated to trying to take down Nigel Farage. Because they could just try and actually stop the illegal migration crisis, stop the numbers ballooning, but instead they're just going to put out a bunch of tweets to try and attack Nigel Farage. They keep putting videos out saying that they are securing our borders. They put a picture up yesterday saying, if you come to Britain illegally, you will be detained and deported, which is a complete lie. You're going to detain about 5 people and maybe, if you're lucky, send them back to France. Not every single one. It was a complete and utter lie. Yeah, desperate times for the parties who are scared of Nigel Farage and Reform. Anyway, I'm Chloe Dobbs. Thank you very much for watching this video. Make sure you hit the subscribe button down below. And if you hit that notification bell, you'll know when we're posting new videos, which would be fantastic, wouldn't it? See you next time.